Okay, this meeting of the House Environmental Committee will now come to order. Evan, would you take the roll?
Vitale,
Present.
Brown,
Designation.
Fleming,
Designation. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Hohenstein, Isaacson, Kazim,
Designation, but we expect her soon.
Atten, Pielli, Rivera,
Here.
Salisbury,
Designation.
Siegel,
Here.
Steele, Takak,
Designation.
Webster,
Here.
Rader, Bashline,
Here.
Day,
Designation.
Flick,
Designation.
James,
Designation.
Mahaffey,
Designation.
Pugh,
Here.
Schmidt,
Designation.
Schaefer, Stender, Twardzik,
Designation.
Wentling.
Okay, Mary, would you lead us in the pledge? Okay, good morning, everyone. Chair Rader, would you have any opening remarks? Would you care to say anything before we get into the bills at hand?
I do not, but thank you for asking.
Okay, so the first bill before us today is House Bill 1089 by Representative Steele. Do we have a motion and a second to take up this bill? We have Mary and Danielle. Okay, so is there any discussion? And we will start off with the maker of the bill, Representative Steele. Yeah. Say whatever you need to say.
All right. Do I have all day?
Yep, until 11 p.m. tonight.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to talk about my bill, which would prohibit the supply, sale, or application of coal tar-based sealants on driveways and parking lots in Pennsylvania. Coal tar-based sealants are sometimes used to coat asphalt driveways, parking lots, and playgrounds. Coal tar sealants contain large amounts of a class of chemicals known as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs. These compounds are a known risk to public health and a Tier 1A human carcinogen. Runoff from driveways and parking lots treated with coal tar sealants contaminate our air and water. The fact that these chemicals are often sprayed in areas where our children play is disturbing, and why the AMA is against its use. When you're out running errands on a weekend and you walk across a paved parking lot, there is a very good chance that you are walking on coal tar, breathing it in, and transporting microscopic particles stuck to the bottom of your shoes into your house, transforming your house dust into a toxic stew and significantly raising your risk of cancer. Numerous municipalities in Pennsylvania and around the country have already banned coal tar sealants, my own community being the first in the Commonwealth to do so. And several states, including Maine, Maryland, Minnesota, New York, and Washington, prohibit or restrict their use. Asphalt-based alternatives are readily available, have the same efficacy, look, and price. Let me stress that again. Asphalt-based alternatives are readily available. They have the same efficacy, the same look, and they cost the same amount of money. We legislators are tasked with advancing legislation that will improve the lives of the constituents we represent. This is that. Common sense legislation to help protect our water, air, children, and improve the health of Pennsylvanians. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Steele, for the fine work you've done on this bill. Evan, would you give a brief analysis of it, of the bill?
House Bill 1089 prohibits the supply, sale, or application of high PAH sealants in the Commonwealth.
Okay. I'll note the presence of both Rep. Day and Rep. Kazim. Okay. Any discussion on House Bill 1089? Chair Rader.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I have some concerns about it. The FDA has approved coal tar for decades as a base ingredient for skin creams, shampoos that fight certain skin conditions. It's odd that the FDA would approve coal tar to be applied to the skin and scalp if it's harmful. The amount of PAHs produced by these items is also far higher than in coal tar sealer. Coal tar sealer is not and has never been classified as a hazardous material by the EPA. In 60 years of use, no liability or workers' comp claims have been made relative to any type of harm caused by this product. And studies have consistently found that traffic-related emissions, not runoff from pavement sealed and refined coal tar sealers, are the primary source of PAHs in the urban environment. So if they're the primary source and we don't seem to have any issues, FDA, EPA, on how safe they are, it would seem like we'd have to ban all vehicles because that's the highest level of PAHs in the environment, which of course we're not going to do. So for those very many reasons, I'm against the bill. But thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on House Bill 1089? Rep. Steele.
If I may, Chair Rader, thanks for those comments. So one, coal tar is on the EPA's list to be reviewed, so they will be doing that. Given the state of the federal government right now, I imagine that it will not be in the near future. And so I believe it's incumbent upon us to take action at the state level. Second, your point about coal tar being in medications and certain shampoos, that's very true. But the key piece of information there is that it's the, I'm sorry, I don't know the scientific term, but it's the, the amount. And in these sealants applied to asphalt, the concentration is much, much, much higher. Therefore, your health risk goes through the roof. It's perfectly safe at the levels used in medication and shampoo, not at these very, very high levels that we see in asphalt sealant application. Thank you.
Rep. Rader, Chair Rader.
I just have to answer the first part. The EPA, even if they don't do it now and say it's dangerous, they had many, many, many years to say it's dangerous under different administrations. So I don't think even if they look at it now, that's not to say they will find it dangerous. So they haven't for years, and whether they look at it now or not is irrelevant for that point. Thank you.
Okay. Further questions or discussions? Do we have a motion to report House Bill 1089 as committed? Rep. Pielli, Rep. Kazim. Evan, can you take the roll?
Vitale,
Yes?
Brown,
Designation yes?
Fleming. Yes. Hohenstein. Yes. Isaacson. Yes. Kazim. Yes. Otten. Yes. Pielli. Yes. Rivera.
Yes.
Salisbury.
Designation yes?
Siegel. Yes. Steele. Yes. Takak.
Designation yes?
Webster.
Yes.
Rader.
No.
Bashline.
No.
Day. Flick.
Designation no.
James.
Designation no.
Mahaffey.
Designation no.
Pugh. Schmidt.
Designation no.
Schaefer. Stender. Twardzik.
Designation no.
Wentling.
Okay, thank you. The bill will be reported then as committed. The next bill on our agenda is House Bill 109. Evan, can you give a brief analysis of House Bill 109?
House Bill 109 provides for environmental permitting procedures in environmental justice areas, including consideration of cumulative impacts and public input.
Okay. Do we have a motion and a second to call up the bill? Mary and Danielle. Okay. Members will recall that we had an extensive public hearing on this bill about a month ago in early March. The purpose of the bill is to give more protection to the citizens in environmental justice areas. The bill requires that applicants for certain defined permits in environmental justice areas engage in a cumulative impact study. The bill requires public hearing to be conducted, and the bill gives the Department of Environmental Protection the added authority to modify or deny permits based on this cumulative impact analysis. We have two amendments, but we'll kind of discuss that a little further. But the first amendment we have is Amendment 274. This is my amendment. Do we have a motion and a second to call this up, Mary and Chris? This amendment basically does a couple of things. It, based on the stakeholder feedback we've had at the previous hearing and other stakeholder suggestions, one, it just tweaks the definition of cumulative environmental impacts to add the concept of the consideration of public health. It tweaks the definition of facility with regard to slightly broadening the scope of the air permits covered by the Act, and it also tweaks the definition of facilities with regard to electric generating facilities to slightly increase the scope of that. Any questions or comments with regard to A274? Chair Rader, I welcome your support.
Surprisingly, I have a few comments, but thank you. Initially, I saw it was the cumulative effect of businesses in an environmental justice area. My problem with that is if you have a business and you're not going against any rules or environmental laws or anything like that, and you're fine. You have business number 2, and you're not violating any laws. You have business number 3, and you're not violating any laws. But if business number 4 wants to come in, even though they're not violating any laws, they could be denied a permit. And I just don't think that's a proper way to go. I think if you're running a business and it's not going to be violating any environmental laws, I don't know why you'd have to deal with that kind of impact, and I don't think it would be fair. So surprisingly, I would be against the amendment. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and a quick response to that is if business 4, if the added pollution of that is going to sicken and cause cancer and cause deleterious health effects to a community already burdened with significant pollution, this is something we as legislators have a duty to prevent. I know in my district and Rep. Kazim's district, we have the city of Chester, which is terribly burdened with a multiplicity of emitting sources. And at some point, it's important to consider all of the potential impacts upon citizens when issuing permits. That is what this bill seeks to do. So amendment seeks to tweak a bit. So we're talking, just to be clear, we're talking now about the amendment, not the bill. Okay. Sure.
And I understand what you're saying, what you're trying to do, but if there are environmental concerns out there and people are polluting, they should be dealt with. I'm not against doing that. But if they're not polluting, if they're not doing anything wrong environmentally, and the new business is not doing anything wrong environmentally, if they are, then they shouldn't be allowed to be there. And I think there are ways to get them not to be there. You just don't vote for it. So I think if people are polluting, they should be dealt with. I totally agree with that. If they're not polluting, I don't think they should fall under something like this. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other, before we call the roll, any other comments on Amendment 274 to House Bill 109? Rep. Day.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, on your striking out, was that, which one was removed? I don't know if I'm following the amendment appropriately. Looks like remove 6, put in 5, remove 7, put in 6. Which one? I
I
can't track.
believe that, let me see if we got here. I believe that there was a consolidation when we, in that first deletion. In other words, in order to accomplish what we wanted with regard to broadening the definition of air permit, we struck out in the current bill sub 2 and sub 3, and then we replaced it with
That's my
a
question.
consolidated sub 2. So,
Thank you, that's my question. Jim.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
understand.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussions about House Bill 274 before we call the roll? Seeing none, Evan, could you call the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation yes.
Fleming, Hohenstein,
De-
Isaacson, Kazim, Aten, Pielli, Rivera,
Yes.
Salisbury,
Designation yes.
Siegel, Steele, Takak,
Designation yes.
Webster, Rader,
No.
Bashline,
No.
Day, Flick,
Designation no.
James,
Designation no.
Mahaffey,
Designation no.
Pugh, Schmidt,
Designation no.
Schaefer, Stender,
Designation no.
Twardzik,
Designation no.
Wentling.
Okay. The amendment is passed. We have another amendment, which has been properly filed, Amendment 288 by Representative Kazim. Representative Kazim is from the city of Chester, which has been burdened by many of the pollutants and issues we're discussing today. Rep. Kazim has done great work on this issue, both before and after this bill came to pass. Rep. Kazim has prepared a very thoughtful amendment addressing a number of important issues. It's my understanding that after discussions with Representative Kazim, I am very appreciative of her cooperative nature here. She has decided to withdraw this amendment, but wishes to explain why she filed it, what the amendment does, and what her intentions are moving forward with this amendment. So, Rep. Kazim, thank you for your great work on the issue.
Thank you, Chairman. There were supposed to be 3, I believe, separate amendments, but it looked like they put it all in one. So I just want to explain to the committee why I feel as though that this amendment was necessary. And I want to thank the maker of the bill for this much-needed legislation as well, because I do believe it needs to be addressed. But after we had the hearing that transpired in my district, I felt as though that every feedback and all the testimonies that were given, we had to take into consideration. And I believe in transparency, I believe in justice, and I believe in due process and fairness as well. So on line 4, where we were talking about regularly, after I've attended different DEP hearings where many industries or businesses are up for renewal, I would go in, I would listen to the testimonies of their community, I would hear from the businesses as well. And one of the things that always struck to me was, even when you look in courtrooms, they always say, what were the legislators thinking at the time that they were putting things in the legislations? Or what did they mean? And I felt that leaving regularly just leaves more speculations, which is why I asked for DEP to insert review every 2 years as to what they considered was an environmental justice area. And when you leave it as regularly, it kind of gives them a little leeway to pick and choose when they believe it should be reviewed, rather than specifying to them, this is what the law says. You guys have to review it every 2 years. Another amendment was where I asked that instead of their system to be updated every 3 years, I wanted it to go down to every 2. And I believe it can go both ways. It can be a developer coming in where they may do their own study and see that a community is listed as an environmental justice area, where maybe some industries or facilities that once existed is no longer, but because it's not updated in their system, anybody that comes in, it can, I don't want to say the word dilute, but it can turn individuals away. Even if it's a project that can benefit a community, whether it's a supermarket or a mall, anything that can issue a denial on a permit. And I just felt that these type of things to happen at the same time, and then also for communities that maybe was not an environmental justice area may now be exhibited as one. And if you do not have your systems updated as often, sometimes those things can be missed, and that can cause more of a strain on a community. And the last thing that I know was a very big concern was the appeal process. As I stated before, I still believe in transparency and fairness and due process, and I believe that everyone has the right to an appeal. And I know that DEP stated that they likely have that process, and an individual can likely appeal, but the word likely it does not sit right with me. I don't think it should be a likely. It's either do they have the right to an appeal or they don't. And when we look at putting something like this, after hearing the testimonies from many of the experts, they talked about, yes, this was needed, but do they believe that it still needed some work just to make sure that we're not causing more harm than good? And that's why I felt that the appeal process should take place when we're talking about something like this, because anyone can be denied, even if there's a conflict of interest. If someone comes in and said, this is a project I want to propose, and let's say they had more watts than they thought that they should, I just feel as though that if someone comes in and they fix it or they change it, then we should allow them that chance to be seen for reconsideration. But if the board decides that no, it's still an impact and it's harmful to the community, then it's up to DEP to deny it again. However, I just believe that everyone should come in and be given that chance for reconsideration, just for whatever they feel as though that they believe is a concern. So, you know, Chairman, you stated, with that being said, because I do understand the concerns, and I do want to make sure that we have language in place that would be beneficial to everyone, I will definitely withdraw on this, but with the intent of understanding that I will be coming back with legislations if it do need to transpire on the floor, and just to make sure that there are amendments so we can make sure that everything is being touched on, not just on one angle. Thank you.
Thank you, and we appreciate your willingness to cooperate here. We do have a representative from the DEP in the room, and we will be happy to facilitate the meetings necessary to make sure that your thoughts are given every consideration and you have the opportunity to prepare a good floor amendment that addresses your concerns. Thank you. Okay. So we now have before us House Bill 109 as has been amended by Amendment 274. Do we have a motion to take up the bill as amended? Chris and Mary. So the bill has been taken up and seconded. Discussion? Chairman?
Surprisingly enough, I have a couple issues.
Okay.
A couple of issues with the bill. One question I have, though: can a community, borough, township approve a plan without the board's approval, the DEP approval? Like if they see something, they think, okay, we want to have that in our community. Can they approve it with, like if the board says no, can the township say yes?
Well, this involves situations where a facility wants to construct something that will have certain emissions, certain pollutants that trigger a permit requirement by the DEP. So, I mean, so the DEP's requirements and the state law providing for those requirements would be paramount, and for the applicant to proceed with that facility construction, that permit would need to be obtained.
Okay, that's what I thought, and of course, if there's no board there, then you don't have to go through that. What I think, because of that answer, I think it takes land use decisions away from the local community. They may want that factory, they may want the business there. So it kind of stifles business, could hurt local governments. Maybe they need the tax base, maybe they need the jobs. And why would, from the business perspective, why would any business go into an environmental justice area, have to go through the board process, go through all that, go through the uncertainty of doing that, when they could go someplace else and have their business and have the jobs and have the tax base someplace else? So that also is something I'm not too crazy about. But I think local governing bodies already have the right, if they see a business trying to come in that may be a pollutant or may be not good for the community, they already have a way to get around that. I know in my area, we joined regional planning groups. I mean, you can do that, and that can disallow a business from coming in. There could be environmental reasons. They have every right to say no to a business coming in if they have environmental concerns, and they can prove them. And they can also change zoning laws. There are many times as a supervisor, I changed the zoning so a business couldn't come in. I just changed the law. And that was another way. So if they want to impact, you can still keep the local control. If they see something coming in that they don't like, they have every ability to do something about it without creating this. And I also think DEP has the ability to come in and say, okay, you're polluting, we're going to shut you down, whether it's an environmental impact area or not. They should come in if someone is polluting in Pennsylvania and say, you can't do that, and shut them down. And if somebody's trying to come in that you can prove is going to be an issue, I think there are many ways to stop it from coming in without having this law. So for those reasons, I'll be a no. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk just briefly about the whole idea of cumulative effects and how powerful and important that's going to be across a number of issues. And in my district, we're at the bottom of a almost 400 square mile watershed. And it's very interesting to see in Pennsylvania, where we have very decentralized government with the powers and the zonings of each municipal government, where materials are accumulating and how we're going to deal with these big issues. And I'll just say it's in water, it's in air, it's in soils over 100 years of development in our Commonwealth and in our nation. But whether it's carcinogens, heavy metals, PFAS is a big issue in southeastern Pennsylvania. The cumulative effects are potent and costly because the costs end up in somebody else's backyard. We have deep water wells that serve communities that are closed because of the cumulative effects over time of these materials. And just I want to say thanks to the chairman for running a bill that makes us begin worrying, begin dealing with at a government level what's going to be a big issue in the future for water and water in particular. So thanks, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Any other questions or comments before we call the roll? Going once, going twice. Evan, could you call the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation yes.
Fleming. Yes. Hohenstein. Yes. Isaacson. Yes. Kazim. Yes. Atten.
Yes.
Pielli. Rivera.
Designation yes.
Salisbury.
Designation yes.
Siegel. Yes. Steele. Yes. Takak.
Designation yes.
Webster.
Yes.
Rader.
No.
Bashline.
No.
Day. Flick.
No. Designation no.
James.
Designation no.
Mahaffey.
Designation no.
Pugh. Schmidt.
Designation no.
Schaefer? Stender?
Designation no.
Twardzik?
Designation no.
Wentling?
And the bill will be reported as amended. We'll want to remind the committee members, we're planning a tour for next Monday and Tuesday. So we'd be interested in hopefully hearing that you're able to attend, but one way or the other. Rep. Rader, do you have any further thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I do not, but thank you for asking again.
Thank you, and thank everyone for coming today. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.